Today's guest on What's Life Without Cricket is W.V Raman, one of my favorite left-handers in the game. W.V shares his unique insights with the usual rationale and logic, making this a wonderful conversation. Don't miss it. W.V, welcome to What's Life Without Cricket. This is just a fun chat between friends. Anand and I being very selfish about all the guys we've not had a chance to connect with over the last few months because of the pandemic. It's just a all-round chat about cricket, life, philosophies, this, that, and the other. But the ceremonial opening question is: what would life without cricket be to W.V Raman?
I can get by. Unlike a few people that I know, I am reminded of a famous conversation I heard between your senior, that's Jatin Paranjape and Rajbhai, and one evening at the CCI, suddenly Rajbhai posted a question saying that, Vasu, what will you do if cricket is stopped for some reason? So Vasu casually said, what is left to do here? I'll go over to that pylon of lights and dive from there, commit suicide, and you do the same, go on to your flat in Lords, you hold Lords so close to your heart. You can perhaps try and make an effort to jump into Lords and commit suicide. But that is how Vasu has always been. That's how Rajbhai was. I wouldn't say that I would probably go to that extreme. I'll try and do a lot of various things to keep at least my sanity intact, if not anything else. Yes, as of now, I'll have to try and figure out what it is that I'm going to do now that there's no involvement, at least for the next few weeks. Let me try and figure out. I'll probably catch up on a lot of reading, which I haven't done in the past. So it's interesting.
So, a pretty naive question, Vooks, but what was your education around? Did you also study to become an engineer?
Yeah, I was wanting to become one. But that was stifled by perhaps a temperamental teacher that I had who was tutoring me maths. I think somewhere down the line I'll get an opportunity to explain that more in detail. I did want to do that, but after that particular chapter in my life, come cricket, I think that had to be sort of put to the back burner and get on with it.
So was introduction to cricket for you right from the were you like me, like right from the under 15 days you played for Tamil Nadu, and was it that, or were you a little bit of a late kind of a bloomer?
Of course, I was from that under 15 concept. In fact, I played the inaugural year along with the Sabah Kareems, Lakshman Siram Krishnans, and of course Rajiv Sardesai figured in that edition as well.
Right.
I remember it was, I think 79-80 was the year they started. The BCCI started that, and it was a steady climb from there. Mind you, nothing has been via the easy route for me. I had to get it done step by step, and that was also the right way to go about, because you can't have sudden spurts in your life in any which way.
Sure. And what was it like growing up in Madras at that time, growing up in cricket? What was it like? What was the atmosphere? What was the culture? Because from what I remember, it was a pretty aggressive kind of, your seniors had a big stranglehold on the juniors in some shape or form. So how did you find that? Or maybe I'm wrong.
Trust me, it was not easy, especially if you happen to be different. When I say different, if you had your own counsel, if you stuck to yourself, and if you didn't indulge in all the other conversations that happened around you, you were looked at differently, but that didn't bother me. I had to make a choice as early as when I was 16, whether you be one among the lot or you try and do something which is going to take you far. So I decided to be the way I was, because I felt I could probably be better off in not being one among the lot. And even at the risk of people labeling me arrogant, I think that was the right course. I was going to stick to that, and that was the way I was. Yes, as far as the stranglehold that is spoken about Tamil Nadu cricket, basically it is all directed towards one person, and I thought that was unfair.
Yeah.
In fact, if you were to rewind my life, I would still play under that person. I'll still have a lot of time for him. I would still feel that it was a case of what se bura hai badnaam,
Right.
as they say in Hindi.
Right. Fantastic. Was it? Who were your peers growing up at the under 15, under 19 level?
LS and I started together. Of course, Bharat Arun was a couple of years, or if not 3 years, senior to us. We had him in the under 19 setup, and then we had Girish, who went on to play for the state, and then we had Krishnamachari Shrikant's younger brother Srinath, and then we had Akbar Ibrahim, who went into car racing later on. Yes. Quite a lot of them did well, and it was just a case of them having to choose when they came to the crossroads. They took different roads, and they have done well in their chosen field. Right. So the thing was that the camaraderie that we had, the fun that we had was phenomenal, because at the junior level, Tamil Nadu always did phenomenally well. In as much as I can remember, for a period of 20 years, starting from my start in 79 to perhaps 98, 99, I thought Tamil Nadu always did well in all the junior level tournaments. And it's just that transition, and then when they came into first class level, things could be difficult. Not necessarily because the players were not up to it, it's because of various other factors that make up a cricketer's life.
Sure. And I'm going to ask you a question about coaching, and I'm going to ask you, but I'll preface it. You're a natural, with the ball, batting, but you're a natural who's always had an eye on technique, so you've always had questions about technique. I've seen you ask coaches about technique. So who were the first couple of coaches who kind of worked with you?
Oh, it's a very difficult one. The first camp that I can remember was when M.R. Bey came from Hyderabad. TNC used to organize an off-season camp. And then when I played representative cricket and did well, the BCCI would do the off-season camps. Mr. Adhikari was one who used to have those camps. Rather, he would conduct those camps as a head coach. And I spent at least about 3-4 camps under him. It was interesting because he was a tough man. He had his fixed notions, but he was always for the boys, for the betterment of the boys, and he always cared for us. And that was important, because you could be whatever you are, and you could sort of have your fixed notions. You could have your idiosyncrasies. All that is fine, but at the end of the day, it's about what kind of responsibility you have for the what you're handling. That is what's important. I think that is what I picked up from Adhikari. Then, of course, I came across Vasu much later, in my early 20s. We formed a great relationship, in the sense that Vasu was always one who would impart his phenomenal knowledge, and he had a very good way of communicating what he wanted to communicate. Even if he wanted to be sarcastic, he'll always lace it up with humor, which obviously meant that you didn't take things to heart, but yet the message was conveyed. I'm sure that not many would have appreciated a few comments from Vasu, but of course, it was not to hurt anybody. It was just that his way of communicating was such that you remembered it for the rest of your life. Because in my case, at least, I was fortunate enough to at least get to meet him once or twice a year, because he was coming to the MR Place Foundation, and I used to practice there. But the rest of the people, I don't think they would have had the opportunity of meeting him as frequently as I did. So his thing was, once again, it was all about how well you can, sort of help a cricketer maximize his potential. So that is something that I sort of picked from him during my interactions with him. And that's what it was all about. Just try and be in the background and be more of a help than a hindrance.
Right.
If you can be of help. If you can't, don't be at least an hindrance to a cricketer. That is my philosophy.
It's a great foundation to build on, I think. Uh, as you came up in cricket, and made the transition from domestic to international cricket, do you remember if you made any technical changes at all? Sometimes you change your grip a little bit, or was there anything which you felt that, hey, if I do this, maybe I can get into a better position or be prepared earlier? Was there anything which comes to mind?
A lot of people felt I didn't take my cricket seriously enough, but
that's because of the language kind of,
What they don't seem to understand is that I was playing the catch-up game because I became a batsman in international cricket overnight, which meant that I had played cricket for about 7-8 years at least as a frontline bowler who was batting much lower down the order, and suddenly here you are. You got to change your entire gamut of dynamics to be an international batsman and succeed at that. So, which meant that it was a catch-up game in every respect. It was not that easy. I sort of did things in certain different ways, but of course, each person is entitled to his own opinion or her own opinion. That's a different issue altogether. But the thing was that it was interesting, the catch-up game. But to specifically answer your question, I don't think I did anything that I remember. I've heard a lot of people say things. I heard a lot of people do things, but I personally haven't done anything for the simple reason that I banked on my ability to do things the way I could, because as it is, I was making a lot of adjustments.
Yeah.
In terms of preparing, in terms of thinking, in terms of other things. So to sort of add more to as it is, whatever it is that I was working on would have been absolutely chaotic. So who knows? Perhaps the other side of the coin is that I could have done far better if I were to probably change a few things. You never know these things. So, but at that point in time, I had to take a call as to whether I add more facets to my basket of working on or not. So I decided not. So that's what it was.
So what was when you say that you had to become a batsman and international cricket overnight, what was that inflection point?
It was simple. I made my debut at Eden Gardens early '88. It was, in fact, the very next day after the New Year's Day. I batted at 8. I was supposedly picked as a frontline spinner who can be a useful lower order batsman, but I played at number 8, and then I think I was perhaps lucky enough to get a feel of international cricket by playing out 3-4 deliveries. Then we won that game. I remember Maninder bowled a fabulous spell. I think that was probably one of the best spells by a spinner in limited overs cricket. It had to be, obviously, if you're picking up the wickets of Greenidge and Richards and you're ending up with 18 runs, those 2 wickets of 10 overs. You must have been a decent bowler. You must have had a decent day. So that is what I remember of my debut more than anything else. The next game, as it happened, Ravi walks out to me at around 9 o'clock or whatever. He asked me, "Would you bat at 3 today?" I said, "I don't care, boss. Let me bat up and go. That's one chance of me getting some batting." Anyway, so the way I answered, he was not, he was taken aback a little bit. Mind you, you had to do something different to make him, sort of surprise Ravi. So he said, "I'm asking you to bat at 3. Are you okay, regardless of whether you bat first or bat second?" I said, "I heard you." I said, "Yes." I said, "That's one way of me getting a promotion. Where am I going to bat number 3 otherwise?" Then he sort of broke the news to me that Jimmy Amarnath was indisposed, and there was a sort of temporary ward to be filled up. So I went out and batted, and I played like a typical lower order batsman, let me assure you of that. Anyway, that happened to be my lucky day. I got a few runs, and then a couple more knocks after that, and suddenly people said, "Oh, you should be batting at the top regularly." I said, "What have I done to myself here?" I was very happy bowling a few overs, getting a little bit of a hit here and there. And now I suddenly made every outing of mine a one-ball game. I said, this is a bad bargain here, Raman. What have you done? But I said, anyway, the other way of looking at it was that, it was the only way I could get a game, playing at the top of the order. Otherwise, I had no chance of playing a game because, to be honest, my bowling skills are also dipping very fast. So that was something that nobody could fix, unfortunately, at that time. So, given the circumstances and where I stood and what I was capable of doing, I had to take it. As simple as that.
Did that outing at number 3 against that pace? Tell us about the first few balls playing that kind of pace at number 3.
To be very honest, I never thought much about anything. It was just a case of me thinking of, just try and manage to see the ball, no matter what happens. If you can keep your eyes on the ball, I think, I felt that I could be okay, I could manage. Essentially, to me, that is what batting was all about.
Yeah.
So that is what I was focusing on doing, and it worked out on a few days. It did work out on many days. There again, I had a little bit of an issue because I had a problem with one of my eyes. There was no proper contact lens then. So essentially, I was perhaps batting with one eye, and the other one was a lazy one. Right. Fortunately, it happened that it was my left eye, so the leading eye was okay. So as it is trying to, sort of ensure that I see the ball properly was a problem. And it's a problem for many people with 20 by 20 vision, but it's even more so. It was even more so in my case. So I had to ensure that I stuck to that more than anything else.
Because I asked this question because obviously I've faced it a few times, but my first match as a spectator was at the Wankhede Stadium, India versus West Indies, where Dilip Venksalkar got 100. And I went there, Anshuman Gaikwad was batting. I couldn't see the ball from the stands. The first 3 or 4 balls I just couldn't see. And it was amazing just to see that pace. So yeah. So
it did happen. I wouldn't say it hasn't happened. It has happened because I remember one particular delivery of Marshall. It was just short of length on the leg side, and there I was stylishly going back and across, trying to nudge it down. And there's no contact, and either on the ribs or on the bat. And by the time I could sort of realize what had happened, the ball had already gone to square leg. So if at all if the ball had held its line and it was in line with my ribs, it would have gone one way and come out the other way. So luckily that didn't happen. So it has happened, not that it has not happened.
Yeah. The other thing which I experienced was that after you bat against that pace, your bottom hand just swells up, because the bat's hitting the webbing such a lot. Did you also have that experience at some stage?
Yeah, all these things, sort of happen sometime or other. They do not. No, it's not a case of things happening regularly. It's just that what you probably sort of feel more relieved about the fact that you come out unscathed physically because they were really quick.
Right.
And of course, you needed to be courageous on the field, and all that is fine. But there will be a sense of relief because it's so easy. Considering the sort of fraction of seconds you have to be able to gauge the length and line and then decide what you have to do and then execute against that pace. No, you obviously would feel a sense of relief. I'm sure everybody would have had this kind of feeling sometime or other. After a point, I think it becomes automatic for them to say, okay, this is something which is done. But of course, when the protective gear was not, anywhere up to the mark at the time when you played guys who were bowling 140 clicks, close to 150 clicks. That is one thing you'll probably, sort of, that thought will cross your mind now and then. You're lucky to be alive.
Yeah. What was the South Africa tour like? Because again, top-notch fast bowling. What was that experience like?
It was totally new to us. None of us knew what to expect. All I perhaps knew was that they were fierce competitors because I played in the English League where we had quite a few South Africans.
Right.
So they would sort of, let me know about what is happening in their domestic cricket. They had the treble series going, and that kept them, their competitive edge going as well. So, which meant that even though they were not part of international cricket, what happened was that they were playing real good quality cricket.
Yeah.
And you expected them to be really competitive. But apart from that, there's hardly anything that we knew about. It was a fabulous country, yes. You had diverse things to see there.
Okay.
It was fantastic. And they also ensured that they reciprocated the welcome they got at Eden Gardens a year earlier, which meant that things were obviously really good when you landed into any place. So that was probably something misleading in the sense that you saw the best of everything. And when you went out onto the field, you didn't get the best of conditions that you see in other countries. That's why.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, what happened was that we had to try and learn quickly, because there's no way of going and straight away saying, okay, we've been playing international cricket, we're going to really sort of run through this side as in how we sort of wanted to. They were fiercely competitive. The scores were not big scores. They're test cricket or one day cricket. So it was very tough, and it was also very enjoyable, because I felt, despite the fact that we didn't have great results on the field, there was a lot of camaraderie. It was a really very enjoyable tour, and it also was very important given that the World Cup was coming up the following season then. So in many respects, that was a very important tour. One is that to know what exactly South African cricket is all about, and also to sort of go and compete there. And also, it was a case of preparing for the World Cup the next year.
I remember there was a pretty innocuous opening match to that tour, right? Which sort of turned out to be the lull before the storm, so to speak.
Yeah, it was, because it was a very funny game in the sense that those days the side games were taken a bit lightly, especially by the members who were established and were sure to play the game. So in the blink of an eye, we were bowled out, and there was one left-arm seamer who said it's not going to be easy, boys, and he went by the name of Brett Schultz. So I remember in the second innings, we had to bat about 40 minutes, and we went out, Ravi and I, and Brett Schultz comes in, runs in, first ball, awkward action, and I thought he had Ravi badly. I saw the ball just inches away from the grill, and it was a great effort by Ravi to sway away at the last moment. I still remember it was the third ball of the over. So he comes down the track after the over, comes and he says, that was a good wake-up call, wasn't it? I said, oh, was it? So he made us realize that you're going to be up against the good fast bowlers there. So, and he was one who could have gone on to become a great, because he was not only awkward, he was really quick, and he could surprise you. He could also seam the ball, but unfortunately he was bogged down by a lot of injuries, and that too at very, very frequent intervals.
I'm going to hand it over to Anand now. He's dying to ask you a few things.
Well, I had a pretty good seat in the house, as they say, just staying at the non-strikers and then watching you guys do all the run making. But certainly, I would like to butt in at some stage. So, Coach, you explained how you at international level were kind of forced to become a batsman from having looked at your own game differently. As a youngster, and then through your career going through, did you have a favorite position that you wanted to bat in, a favorite type of role that you wanted to play in? What was it?
For one who was never sure of his place at any level for over a period of 17, 18 years, I don't think I had any choices really. I was more of a beggar who couldn't choose. That's the harsh reality of it. At no point in time I could say that I was very sure of my place.
But if you were
Only place where
hypothetically,
I was sure of, I was very sure of a regular number, if at all I chose to, was in my school team when I captained that too.
and you could bowl one end up too if you want. So that's sort of
if I wanted to, yes.
yeah. And earlier Jatin was talking, about you playing against the West Indies, and I know you're an admirer of the great Viv Richards and some other West Indian batsmen of those era. But when you were growing up, being a left-hand slow left-arm bowler, did you have someone who you looked up to, or someone who you kind of thought, I want to play like that guy?
I was always, and I still harbor that wish of seeing Salim Durrani in action. Because when I grew up, I came into the first class circuit, which I did in my school final. By the time I had come across Anand Vasu, and he would discuss a lot of cricket, obviously. I know if you've met him, it is all cricket. And of course, that time I didn't know golf, so there's no chance. There was a little bit of even, sort of distraction from cricket, since I didn't know golf then. But the thing was that he had told me a lot of things, and slowly as I got to speaking to a lot of the earlier generation cricketers, they were saying great things about Salim Durrani. So I was always, very curious to, sort of see him, if at all possible. First person in person, yes, I got that ticked off a couple of years later when I played a game at Bombay. So that was done. One item ticked on the basket list anyway. So the thing was that to see his tapes if possible, if not at least his photographs, because still photographs, if you know what to look for, you can pick out a lot of things. Like there's one classic photograph of Sunil Gavaskar about to go back to play a short delivery. I think I've seen that in the CCFC, and I think that might possibly be there hanging in one of the walls of CCI as well. And that's a great photograph. You don't really need videos. If you know what to see, still photographs are brilliant.
Yeah.
And so similarly, I want to see his photographs if possible. And then if videos though not happening. And yes, Salim Durrani was one I would have loved to see in action, or if possible in videos. That's not happened. I'll have to probably, sort of go back to that moment of where I had a chat with him and, feel happy about it.
Yeah.
And even when you were playing for Tamil Nadu, the South Zone was had a number of strong cricketers from various different states. And even the Ranji Trophy games within the zone would be very hotly contested. There wasn't perhaps a volume of cricket then that there is today in terms of number of matches and IPL and other things like that. But how much pride did you take in the Ranji Trophy? How much of a sense of, belonging and confidence did that give?
More than the pride in my case, as the pride is always there. The thing was that in my case, it was more of a survival, ensuring that you don't give the selectors to drop you, the chance to drop you rather. So it was one way of survival. And the other thing was that it's like also the education system which prevailed there. You had the quarterly, half-yearly and the annual exams. If you didn't get marks there, you are not rated very highly, or you may not be promoted. So similarly, in the opportunities that were scheduled for you by others, you had to do whether you liked it or not. You had to do well. Whatever was expected of you, at least to live up the expectations of others. So you had no other choice. Let's be very clear about that. That also extended to international cricket. Now, that's why I feel, the cricketers of that era, they've done tremendously well. So imagine a scene where you're playing a series once in probably 12 to 18 months, and going out there, suddenly you're playing the quickest of fast bowlers, of which you have no chance of even practicing against at home, and then you play against them, you succeed, and then you bring laurels, and you stand up to them, and then you put India on the map of world cricket. That was fantastic. It's something that you cannot even match or think of matching of what they did. I'm sure a lot of people also realize, the current generation and the new followers of the game will realize, if they happen to, follow the careers of VVS Lakshman and Cheteshwar Pujara, because they have become test cricket specialists. And it's not easy playing just test cricket and being there, and the pressure that they go through and having to perform, and if not, they're out of international cricket. Come on, it's not easy. We really need to sort of appreciate these attributes that make them brilliant in succeeding in test cricket, and also the brilliance of cricketers of those generations.
Yeah. You've played against the West Indies quite a bit. Any interesting conversations with the great men, Richards, Greenwich? Anything you can share with us?
There's a lot of funny things that we discuss, but unfortunately, this is not the forum that we can probably repeat that. But the cricketers of that generation, they were great in many ways. I remember the Marshalls or the Richards or the Hadleys or anybody for that matter, if they saw you play, or even Imran Khan for that matter. When I say Imran Khan, because he was a man who spoke very little. So he would sort of make it a point to have a chat with the youngsters of the opposition sides, and tell them where they should be improving, and what is it that they find that can be exploited, so that when you get back after the series, you go back and work on that, become better. So that's how it was. Like I remember Imran once walked up to me in charge. I said, "What are you doing?" I was not playing the game. I said, "What do you mean?" So he says, "You're not fit." I said, No, I'm fit. So he's not happy about it, that I was not playing. And he had strong words with the then captain Azhar. Then you'll probably have similarly, going back, even if it's a micro level, you would have a Venkatraman having a word or two with Bobji Narasimha Rao for not playing Azhar in the 11.
Right.
The cricketers and cricket of that generation was absolutely about giving. It was all about real fun, passion, and enjoyment. Now, I sound like a guy who's 150 years old now when I talk about all this.
No, I'm just amazed, and I remember one incident which I think Sanjay Manjrekar told me, that before his debut in West Indies, the dressing rooms were next to each other, and you didn't know whether you were playing till after the toss. Those were the days when you didn't know if you were playing, and I think Viv Richards reached the dressing room before the Indian captain, and so Marshall saw who's playing, and he was doing this to Sanjay, that you're playing in the 11. So that was the kind of camaraderie, just amazing stuff. Anything about Viv which kind of you remember at all? I mean, there's so much to remember, but anything which kind of stayed with you all the time?
He came to me after that debut of mine in Chennai, what was called Madras then. He had good words to say about it and about my innings. And then he said, international cricket, you'll have a lot of things going on around you. A lot of things will be said even after this game. He said it's all about what it is that you're looking to do. It's all about that. So nothing else matters. They don't talk much.
Yeah, but so kind of him to come across and have a few words with you, right?
Yeah, of course. And then it didn't stop there. But much later, around 2001, I think, there was something happening in Sri Lanka, perhaps the Asia Cup or whatever. So I had gone there to just see. I was coming back flying back to Chennai the following morning. He was there on the same aircraft. I think he was the selector then of the West Indies team. So we were in two different lanes, and he suddenly saw me, mind you, 12 years after we played against each other. And in the meanwhile, he would have played against millions of cricketers. So it was nice of him to suddenly sort of,
Yeah.
recognize, and then he came across, had a chat with me, and we were talking all the way through immigration until the time we sort of parted in Chennai. So that's how, they were. The grades of the game, they made you feel great. That's what was great about them.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. You have had a very close relationship with Ravi Shastri. You guys are great buddies. Must have been great to play alongside each other, right?
Yeah, it was, because for the simple reason, if you look at it in a way, he was perhaps the bridge between the earlier generation and our generation.
Right.
Because even though in terms of age, he was not much older than I, what had happened was obviously he had a lead of about 7 years of international cricket experience. Yeah. So, right. Which meant that he was the bridge between us who were coming into the side, like Sanjay, myself, Hirwani, and the rest of the lot, coming into the side in the late 80s. And him having been there since the early 80s, he was one who at least you were familiar with to talk to try and sort of ease your nerves, or try and pick up a little bit of points here and there. And the thing was that he was always there. He was positive, and the fact also remained that he always appreciated people regardless of where they were from, and that's one good thing about him. And he was very impartial in the knowledge that he shared. It is not, he was selective in who he was talking to. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is all about. And of course, after the game, whenever we chose to, we would go and have a drink. That's a different story altogether. So it was a case of probably in many ways like-minded individuals.
Sure. How's the transition been to the coaching side of things?
It's been lovely, because perhaps without me realizing what propelled me into coaching was the fact that I saw a lot of talented cricketers, fading away from the system, as it were, due to lack of guidance. I felt it can't be allowed to happen. Probably something that I could do, I'd probably do something about it, and that's why I think I gravitated towards coaching. It's been a great journey, even though it can be without its rewards at times. It can be a thankless job in many ways. It's always been a fulfilling and satisfying job. The very fact that somebody like Ravi, who's been a sort of king in the broadcasting domain, is chosen to become a coach, you obviously know there has got to be something to it.
Yeah.
You don't do it for the sake of doing.
Yeah.
It's not about the money. It's not about anything else. It's about, there's something else there which you derive great satisfaction from.
Sure.
And and before we started, you were asking me about what is it that I would sort of consider as my philosophy in coaching. It is more about empowering the players and nudging them towards becoming their own coaches, because that is very important. You need to allow the cricketers to evolve. You can't be downloading all the time. After all, it's their game. They know better. At the end of the day, for this technical side, the tactical side apart, the most important thing is about how a player feels within himself. That only he knows. You don't know. Perhaps maybe God knows, but anything that is walking on two legs doesn't know. It's only the player that knows what is going on, in between his ears or her ears. So you cannot ever, sort of fathom it or even take a wild guess.
Yeah.
So that being the case, it's always better for the coaches to sort of allow the players to become their own coaches. Yes, you nudge them. You try and point out the deviation from the norm. Yes, you do that.
Yeah.
After that, it's up to the player.
Right. Absolutely. Anand, anything?
Yeah, Coach, you've spent virtually a lifetime in cricket, as a player, a commentator, columnist, coach, various different roles that you have played. And over the years, we've had, thousands of conversations around cricket. And it seems like still your curiosity for the game, your interest has not dimmed at all. It's, because sometimes when you do something as a profession, it can take away some of the enjoyment of that. But in your case, you still seem to enjoy cricket just as much now as perhaps when you're starting out. How do you keep that freshness alive over such a period of time?
They say curiosity kills the cat. If that were to be true, I am glad to be alive for the curiosity that I have. I'm curious about anything and everything.
Yeah.
With me being involved in cricket for almost 40 years now, obviously would expect the curiosity to be there. Even if I want to stay out of that game or stay away from it or stay away from the discussions, people would draw me into it. So that way, there's no escape either if you look at it from the other side of the fence. But why not? It's a fantastic game. It's occupied most of my life. It's given me a lot of pleasure. It's given me a lot of friends like you lot. What more do you need? And it is something that always keeps evolving as a game and also in its methodology. So there's a lot to talk about. Which other sport gives so many variables? You tell me.
Yeah.
I need to know that.
Yeah.
If any other sport is going to give me so many variables, let me try and start going into that game. If only briefly, of course. Cricket would always be a major part of my life. But the fact is that it's got so many variables. It's got fantastic characters. The stories that this game can churn out, it has churned out. The humor that is, come out of this game. Come on, no other game gives you so much.
Yeah.
It's not a bad bargain at all.
And as you say, there's so much nuance in so many passages of the game. It's just fascinating. I mean, you just want to, watch the game and there's so many pieces to the mosaic happening all the time. Like you said earlier, only the player knows what he or she is going through. I don't know if you remember, but I'd come to you for some advice actually in Madras. Many years back, and you had told me exactly the same thing. I think we were playing the relive trophy or something like that, and I'd asked you if I can meet you, and you'd met me at the MCC, and you told me exactly the same thing. That Jatin, how are you feeling? Are you feeling good? And I said I'm feeling really good. So you said just hold that thought, because everything stems from there, and that's so true. I benefited a lot from that. Those were the days where you couldn't go and talk to people, but somehow I thought that I can come across and have a chat with you, because I just felt you were an approachable guy. And you along with Jitu
I'm telling that to people in Tamil Nadu. I had to sneak that in.
It's their collective loss, unfortunately. But I'd like to ask you a little bit more about coaching. Just the last couple of questions. So how has it been to coach the women's team? I mean, because women's cricket has just taken a huge leap over the last few years, right? So how was it? How was it? Could you just transfer that set of that framework which you use for a men's team and then take that into the women's team? I'm sure there would have been a few changes.
Coachability is easy in women's cricket. Now, what is perhaps slightly challenging is the fact that the relative experience of these girls is nowhere close to that of the boys.
Sure.
For example, if you take a boy, he would have played representative cricket from perhaps maybe 14th or 15th year of his life. That is starting from under 16 onwards.
Right.
And by the time he gets to the India A level, he would have played about 7-8 years of real hard competitive cricket.
Yeah.
So which means that he's come across various situations, he's seen it all in a way. And he would have figured out as to how to overcome the challenges on the field because of the sheer experience and the number of situations you would have gone through playing representative cricket at different levels over a period of 7-8 years. That perhaps does not happen with the girls. So which means that they need to be guided a little bit more in terms of situations. You need to sort of try and keep on educating them a little bit more. That's what it's about. That's the main difference.
Sure.
As far as coachability is concerned, absolutely no problem. They're very keen, and they also recognize the fact that they need to keep working on their game, which they are prepared to do very diligently, be it enhancing their fitness or their skills, or even for that matter, their tactical acumen. They obviously are keen to discuss and learn. So the main difference would be in the relative experience between the boys and the girls. Right. Perhaps that will also be narrowed down in the years to come, because we brought in the A level last year, and there's also this emerging tournament happening. And with the under 19 World Cup starting, I think that will also sort of force the development of cricket at the grassroots level for these girls. Yeah. But I think it can be only done with regional centers, because it's very difficult for the 14, 15-year-old girls to travel from one place to a distant place. They need to try and go closer to wherever they live, and then have the opportunity to work on their game.
Sure. No, you unboxed it with your usual rationale and logic. Anand, anything from you? I have one last question after yours.
Yeah. Well, okay then. If you don't like to talk very much about your own game, I mean, this is something that I've experienced over the years. But if there was one favorite knock of yours, or one favorite game that you were involved in, it may not even be one in which you had tremendous success. Your team might have won or lost, but at any level, from junior level through to test cricket, if there was one game that you had to pick as something you enjoyed, which one would it be?
I would probably say it was the Rohinton Baria semi-finals against Bombay University. Was it the semi-final? It was the final, in fact. It was not even the... I'm not very sure about that, because it happened many moons ago. So we played Aligarh, we played Bombay, we played Pune. I don't know which one was which. I think Bombay in the finals. We played the Bombay University. Jitu Thakre, Anil Chaudhary, Mayank Kandwala, all these guys. It is not a bad side. Yeah. That much I remember. So that's one game I would probably pick from the top of my mind. I don't know why it's come. It also depends, me being the moody guy that time, it depends on when you ask me. You ask me now, so that game has come to my recall. So I would think, that's one game.
What was it about that game? I mean, many of our listeners won't be familiar with that game, obviously. So if you could just shed a little bit more light on that. What happened?
See, it was a tough situation for us, because one was the weather part of it, and university cricket is tough because you're put up in a dormitory and you're supposed to take your bedding. When you are from Chennai, you have to sort of live in conditions where the temperature is about 1 degree, and then you're expected to play cricket and perform with the princely daily allowance being 5 rupees a day. And obviously, your parents are not going to be forthcoming with generous allowances those days as pocket money for playing cricket. That too, if I were to say, yes, I'm going there to study, yes, they might have borrowed or whatever and made sure that I got whatever money I wanted. But if playing cricket was the objective, I don't think, they won't even hear it. So those are the conditions to start off. And then you're up against good sides, and then you're also looking at doing well to perhaps catch the attention of others in different places in the country. You can't be a frog in a well. You got to try and spread your wings by doing well wherever you play, especially when you're playing outside your own domain. So all these factors come into being, and I had also lost my place not because I didn't do well, but they felt I would be better off gaining more experience playing university cricket for a year. This is after playing for South Zone, mind you. So that's a different story altogether. So I went and gained my experience, and I had to make it count by performing. So all these things were there. So that's why I think that really stuck me up.
I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, and with my last question, I like Anand said, you don't like talking about yourself, but please tell us something about that 100 in South Africa. I mean, how did you feel, going into bat? Just kind of chronicle that for us a little bit.
Oh, I really have to tax my memory now because seriously, if you ask me about my playing days, I'm at a loss. The thing was that it was becoming a little bit annoying and exasperating because we had lost the earlier games, and we had to win that game to stay in the series.
Right.
And I had 30s and 40s leading up to that game. I felt, what have I done? South Africa, tough series. You don't get chances, to convert or to get a start every day, and then you throw it away. So you're chasing 214 or something like that. I felt, okay, this is the day to make it count if you get a start, because it's not a 250, 260, but still 214 became a little bit tight towards the end, if I remember right. Ravi had to go and get some quick runs and win the game. So I thought this was the best chance for me to make something substantial, and the innings span started developing nicely, in the sense we are not too far being too much bogged down. We kept losing, because all the more reason for me to try and stay there and make it count, and that's what it was. But I still remember, in as much as I spoke about that Schultz Shastri thing delivery, I still remember there was one particular delivery I said, no, it's gone. I could see, the bullseye being, knocked over. So I said, oh, Alan, what have you done? Yeah. Luckily, I managed a kind of a literal jab with the bat handle. And it was so quick, and it was such a lethal shot one. Off the handle, the ball went over square leg. I remember that. So imagine if it were to find the bullseye, it almost did. Yeah. If it were to find, I think they might have probably, some well-wisher of mine would have started a memorial tournament here in Chennai a long time ago. So anyway, the thing was that towards the end, obviously, when you gain some confidence, you had to it came to a stage where you had to play some shots, and they all came off. And I got out and came back. I was ticked off. They said, no, it's not enough. I said, fair enough. I didn't do it on purpose. I got out. That's about it. So it's as simple as that. So anyway, the thing was, we won the game, and that was one satisfying moment, because we need to win something here. There's no point in playing game after game and coming second. It's just not really a great feeling. All of you know that. You enjoy this game better when you win it.
No, awesome, Books. Thank you so much for your time. I think I'm going to watch that innings tonight. I watched Sachin's first 100 for Yorkshire last night, actually. So I'm on this trip. YouTube is a treasure trove, so you can get all of this. So I'm going to watch that innings tonight, and I'll send you the link and a message along with that as well. Thank you very much, Books, for your time. And we'll be in touch. Take care of yourself. All the best for the wedding. And take care. We'll be in touch. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Jatin. Nice talking to you. Nice of you to have me on this show. And thanks, Anand, once again. And the book, I'm presuming, is doing phenomenally well, given the topic and also the content. And I'm sure similarly, this particular venture of yours would also be, making the charts go crazy.
Thank you.
Surely we'll catch up sometime once we all sort of start traveling.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you again.
Cheers. Take care, Jatin.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Do like, share, and subscribe. See you again next week with a new guest.